Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on the Masechtas Yevamot stop Mem Dalid. We are going to begin on the bottom of Mem Gimel Mid Beis by the Mishnah. Arba Achen. You have a situation actually of 6 brothers, but 4 of those brothers were Nesuin Arba Anoshim, were married to 4 women. And tragically Umesu, all 4 of those brothers died, which meant we now have 2 other brothers alive. So Im Ratza Hagalosh mehen liyabim eskulon harshus biyado. So out of these 2 remaining brothers, the older one, who's surviving, he can do yibum or chalitza with each of these women. Again, they all come from separate batim, and therefore he could do yibum or chalitza with all of them. Next case, misha haya nasul shtei nashim. Let's say you have a person who's married to 2 unrelated women, umeis. Again, he died. So biyasa o chalitzasa shalachs mehem poiter sarasa. So the other brother can either do bia or chalitza with one of them, and that's it. He does not do yibum or chalitza with both of them. He only does yibum or chalitza with one of them, and by doing so, it will pater her and the co-wife. We're going to discuss why that's the situation. Why you don't have to do yibum or chalitza with all of the women that fell. Rather, you can just choose. As we continue to Mem Daled Man Aleph, now out of these 2 unrelated women, one is a kasher, one's already a psula. One of them can't marry Kohen anyway, for whatever reason. Let's say, for example, she was divorced before she married your brother, your brother died. So if you decide you want to just do chalitza, then you should do chalitza with the one who is psula anyway, because we know that once a woman has chalitza done, it has the same din as a gerusha, that she's not allowed to marry a kohen. So therefore, if she's already pasul, the other one's a kosher, why should you do chalitza with the kosher one, and then you're going to pasul her? Let her remain in her status of being kosher, because an almana, widow's allowed to marry a kohen. However, if you're going to do yibum, then do the yibum with the one who's kosher. Now, Arba Achen Salkadaitich, how is it possible that there's 4 brothers? Because if there's 4 brothers, then it's not shaykh that anyone is able to do yibum afterwards. El Ema Arba Me'achen. There's 4 among other brothers. As I said, let's call it 6 brothers, because this way there's an older and a younger one left. Harshus Biado. So the oldest brother can do yibum or chalitza, and he can do it for all of them. Gemara says, V'shav gilei. You're telling me he can just leave it. It says that you will call to the elders of the city, they and not through a shliach. V'dibru alav, and you speak. Molamid shemasian lo eitza haygenesloi, that we provide him with good advice. Shemayahu yeled behizakena. Let's say he's very young and she's old, or who's zakin v'hi yalda. If let's say he's old and she's a young woman, amrinin lo malachayitza yalda. What are you doing? Why would you want to marry and do yibum with a young woman? You're in a completely different generation. It's illogical to want to do so. Malacha eitzel is the kena. What do you want to be with an older woman for? Klach eitzel shekamoischa. You should go after people who are like yourself. Yaltasim katat b'veisecha. And don't cause quarreling in your house. So what do we see? That l'chayra, you're not supposed to do yibum with all of them, because this is something which is, again, you have 4 of them, and again, must be that you can't afford to take care of them all. Right? It says l'tzmicha de'efshalei. We're talking about a situation that you're very wealthy and you can sustain all of them. So why do we give the example of 4? So it's a type of kamashwan daled in tfeiloi. You should only marry 4 women and not more. So that there will be its ona for the month. Says Rashi, ona shel Talmud Chacham me'erev Shabbos le'erev Shabbos. V'zehu asher pirio yitin be'ito b'ksuvos. The matil chol chada oina b'chaydesh. So this way you'll be able to have relations with each woman at least once a month. If this person only has tashmish once a week, so therefore you're not causing a woman to not be able to have tashmish for over a period of a month. There is this element of intimacy that the Chachamim want to make sure that she has Sher Ksusana. Question 3. Arba achin nesua arba nashim bebesu im ratza hagadol yabim eskuam. My nugget high dina bedalad achin. So why does it mention 4? If the guy is rich, so it's 8 to taiva. Dalad in tvelo kehechin matya oina b'chaydesh, as we explained. Okay, weiter. So that's the first part of the Mishnah. Then the Mishnah said Misha Hayan Nasoi. So again, if you have, let's say, two brothers, one brother marries 2 unrelated women, and then that man dies, so he can do Chalitz or Yibum with only one of them, and the other one is Potter. Where it asks, what do you mean? And Yavin L'Tervayo. This is like such a Yisaitis Mishnah, because until this point, maybe it wasn't so pashut exactly who do you do Yibum with. So you can only do Yibum when it comes to your brother, even if he has many wives, you only do Yibum or Chalitza with one of them. So why can't you just do Yibum with Tervayo with both? So Rabbi the pasuk says that shall Yivnes base Achiv by Echad hu boinav in boina shtei batim. From your brother's house, you only build one house, and therefore you only take one wife for Yibum. Okay, so v'nachas Tervayo. So why don't we say you could do Chalitza with both? So Marzucha Bartubi Omerkra Beis Cholitz HaNoal, which is referring to again the mitzvah of Chalitza and the removal of the shoe. So Bais Echad Hu Chalitz in Chalitz Shtei Batim. You only do this for one house and not for 2. Okay, when the Yabim L'Chada V'Nachotz L'Chada, maybe it's telling you that you can't do 2 Yibums or 2 Chalitzas, but maybe 1 and 1. So Omerkra Ki Lo Yachboitz HaChavitz Yabim. That if you don't want, then you can do chalitza. Mashma, that if you do want to marry her, you could do yibum. That's the requirement. And the famous expressions we said before, kol oil yibum, oil chalitza, kol shein oil yibum, and oil chalitza. If we do not find a situation where you're able to do yibum, then there's no din chalitza. They're linked together. The only time that chalitza is done is if it's shaykh to do yibum. And since you can't do yibum with both of them, so you're not going to do yibum and chalitza either. But Shal Yamru Beis Miksasu Banoi Miksasu Cholotz. We wouldn't want also, it would not be good that you would basically be saying, okay, this house I'm going to build up, and this house I'm going to destroy or have no connection to. So because of that, we say you do Yibum or Chalitza with just one. So 1 second, V'yamru. So let them say it. So Im Demiyabim V'hadar Cholotz Hachinami. If, based on the second shot, you do Yibum and then Chalitza, you're right. It's not the biggest deal. The problem is that once you've already gone down the road of Lo Yivna, of you not wanting to build up your brother's home, so therefore, by doing Chalitza, you could no longer do Yibum either. So because since you can't do Chalitza, then Yibum, so we're not going to have you do Yibum and then Chalitza either. The aim, why don't we say, Ki ikachada, if your brother has one wife, Tiskayim mitzvahs yibum, then do yibum. Tarti, if he has 2 wives, what tiskayim mitzvahs yibum? Maybe there is no mitzvah of yibum when the brother who dies has 2 wives. No, there's still a mitzvah of yibum, even if he has multiple wives. You just do yibum or chalitza with one of them. Because in Cain, saras ereva de asrach manavamli. It wouldn't make any sense if in fact we say that if there's 2 wives, that there's never a din of Yibum or Chalitza. Then we've been talking about all these dinim of Tsaras Ereva, that if a man is related somehow, the Yavam, to this woman, so not only is obviously he can't do Yibum or Chalitza, but also the Tsara, he doesn't do it either. Now, Hashdebez Ba'alma, Amar Talav B'nei Chalitza, V'yibum Ninhu, if you're going to tell me any situation of 2 unrelated women, there's no Chalitza or Yibum, so Tsaras Ereva Maboy. The whole notion that there's Tsaras Ereva shows that otherwise, if it wasn't Tsaras Ereva, then there is a din of Yibum or Chalitza. So Alamalo Itzrach, so Alamalo Itzrach, Sakdamina Ervas Avroi Kaima, but this Yabim Tsarasa Kamash Malon Diasira. why don't we say that Taka we need this, as Rashi says, when it comes to two women who are unrelated, they're pater. Mil itzrach lameser tsaras erva. L'chari, you would still need to ask the tsaras erva. But itzrach salkadat lamina erva avroi kaima. The erva from the outside is mekayim. Lo rami kamei. Behavili tsaras bias echad this yavin kamashmon. You would maybe think the fact that you're related to this erva, it's keilu like she's not there because you have no shaykhs to her, and therefore maybe it's in a situation where it's keilu. It's like there's only one woman. There's two women, yeah, but since I'm related to one of them, so obviously she's out of the picture. So it's almost keilu like he only has one wife. Ella yevimta riba. It's derived from a gzera shava. Ha'isa achas kashera. So the question is, what's the difference? Do chalitzu the kshera? How does it matter? It doesn't affect you, it affects her. And our answers, as we said before in Daf Yudal, Rav Yosef, kan shana Rabbi, lo yishbach adam mei bayrai v'acher m'srichen lehem. Person shouldn't pour out into a pit these waters, and perhaps this is like dirty water, when other people want to drink from it. So even though it's true, you're not thirsty, but that doesn't mean you should contaminate the well. That means other people are going to be negatively affected. So this is what it's saying too. Even though for the man, there's no nafkamina if he does chalitza with her or her, but for her sake, there's a big difference. Because if you do chalitza with the kosher, she's going to become apostle. So instead, better do chalitza with the woman who is already apostle. Next Mishnah. So Rashi says this is not a normal situation where you divorce and then 2 minutes later you say, you know what, let's get remarried. This is talking about where it's not allowed. It says Rashi Mishanises. She married someone else in between, which you're not allowed to do. But let's say that's what happened. So what's the din there? Or you did chalitza with a woman, and then afterwards you decided to marry her. Now, as we said, that once you do chalitza, there's a concept of lo yivne. At that point, you no longer can build that relationship. So you're not allowed to marry a woman that you did chalitza with. And finally, in a situation where you ended up doing a nisuin, you married the relative of the woman that you did chalitza with. So Yoitziv Avlad Mamzer, did Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva says they cannot stay in that relationship. And even though maybe this is only a situation of a lav, doesn't matter. According to Rabbi Kiva, he's very strict. And he says, Yesh Mamzer B'chavi Lavin. And therefore, you have to leave this relationship. And if you did have a child in this relationship, that child's a mamzer. Chacham Amrim Ein Havlad Mamzer, because the Chachamim disagree, and they do not hold that Chavi Lavin, the child will be a mamzer. However, they will all agree, if you married her sister after you divorced her, so the din is you're not allowed to marry a sister. Now, maybe it's different if she died, but instead, all you did was divorce her. You cannot divorce a woman and then marry her sister. And if you do, that is chavi krisus. Marrying her sister is a chiv krisus, and therefore the product of that relationship, being that child, will end up being a mamzer devir koil. So according to this Mishnah, chavi krisus is going to be the Vlad mamzer. Chavi lavin is a machlokas, Rabbi Kiva and the Chachamim. So now let's see the next piece of Gemara. Was Sabra Rabbi Kiva? Does Rabbi Kiva really hold that if you married the woman that you did, you married the woman's relative that you did chalitza with, Havlad Mamzer? Rabbi learned Achas Gerusha Midivri Torah. If you marry the sister of the woman you divorced, that is Isser Deraisa, and therefore that makes sense. There'll be an Isser, and the child may be a mamzer there. But Achos Chalutza Madivri Seifrim. When it comes to marrying the sister of the woman that you did chalitza with, so that the child should not be a mamzer. How could the child be a mamzer if it's only Madivri Seifrim? So Tani said that instead you should read the following. Insert Karovas Gerushasai. It's referring to not Kroivas Chalutzaso, but Kroivas Garushasai, that you married the relative of the woman that you divorced, and that is a situation of where it's chavi krisos. Says Rashi, v'rabbanan amachsa grushaso v'naisi chalutzaso pligi. The Rabbanan argue when it comes to machsa grushaso. Hachinam mistabed tiny sevo moedim that they all agree, but naisi kroivas grushaso shavlad mamzer. Now, iyam Rabbi Shlama Ariba that we're talking already about gerusha divorce tiny umoedim that they have something that they do agree on. El iyam loy Ariba my umoedim. Umoedim again gives the impression that they are already talking about a similar type of a topic. And if it was really talking about chalitza, so then Umoedim then talks about Garusha seems to be unrelated. 1 second. Maybe it's coming to teach us that there's a din of being a mamzer by chavi krisis. Says Rashi, v'hachikamer. Afa gav de pligi rabbanim b'chavi lavin, even though they are going to chavi lavin, moedim hein b'chavi krisis shavuad mamzer. Maybe that's how you read it. So hachatani, well, come on, where do you learn that? Ezuhi mamzer, kol sher basar shehu below yavoi, divrei b'kiva. He says any relative that falls in the category below yavoi, which means it's an iser lav, because Rabbi Kiva holds that when it comes to chavi lavin, there's yesh mamzer b'chavi lavin. Now Shimon hatimoini oimer, he says no. Kol shachayven alav kares b'di shemayim v'lacha kedvarov. The halacha is like him. That's only when it's kares b'di shemayim, not when it's chavi lavin. Chavi lavin, no, you're not going. No, child's not a mamzer, but by kares, yes. So we clearly see this elsewhere that chavi krisus, the child is a mamzer. So we wouldn't need to teach us this chiddush again, where it says v'dilma kisasim lantana k'Rav Shimon hatimoini. Maybe the reason why it's doing this is to say that it's a stam mishnah like the shita of Rav Shimon hatimoini, which in fact is what we're saying. The halacha kedvarav makes sense. Halacha is kastam mishnah like him. That when it comes to chavi krisus, that the din is only then is the child a mamzer. Im kain lisnei shar chavi krisus. Then it should just say more of a general statement. Why would it mention it this specific case? El shemamina ariba. It must be that it's not talking about machsa grushaso, or it's not talking about marrying the kroivas chalutzaso, but rather it's talking about kroivas grushaso, and that's what it's talking about because it's chavi krisus. That's where the that's the reason why the child be a mamzer. Now, maybe it's not talking about gerushin. Maybe just to connect the relative of krevis chalutzaso, it mentions krevis gerusasai. El krevis chalutzaso Rabbi Kiva havi mamzer. So when it comes to, again, the relative of one you did chalitza to, Rabbi Kiva apparently holds that it's a mamzer. That's what you're trying to tell me, which is a tremendous chiddush, because as we said, krevis chalutzaso is only medivrei seifrim. It's not a din deraisa, which was our question. So Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Yochanan, hainu time to Rabbi Kiva. So how could Rabbi Kiva say this? Even by a divrei seifrim, the child's going to be a mamzer. So Diamakra, because no, he actually derives from the pasuk. Beis chol tanal, hakosiv karu beisai. The Torah calls it your house. In other words, kroivas chalutzasoi, which is beis chol tanal. By doing chalitza, that's considered to be beiso. Beiso, as we see elsewhere, first Mishnah in Yoma, beiso zu ishto. It's referring to your wife. So kroivas chalitzaso actually takes upon itself that it is a din deraisa. Not that chalitza of marrying the relative of the woman that you did chalitza to is only b'divrei seifrim. Rabbi Kiva actually derives from this pasuk that it's a din deraisa. Amar Rabbi Yosef Rav Shimon. Amar Rav Shimon Rabbi. Hakol moedim. Everyone agrees, Ben Rabbi. Hakol moedim, but machsa grushaso. Now, when it comes to machsa grushaso, so that is a case, or it's chavi lavin. You're not allowed to get divorced, and then the wife marries someone else, and then she, let's say, gets divorced and marries you. That's an iser lav. But everyone agrees, as we continue Mem Dal Mebez, shavlad pogum l'kahuna, that the child is a pogum. This is Rashi. The Yolda bas psula kahuna kechalala, that this daughter is going to be puzzle to kahuna, just like a chalala. So my hakol moedim. What do you mean everyone agrees? Who is agreeing to Rabbi Akiva? Whoever we're talking about. Shimon Timoini. Now Shimon Timoini said typically it's only by chavi krisus. So why over here by Machzor Shaso, which is apparently it's only chavi lavin, why is he saying that the child will be a pogum? Normally, Nehida Mamzul Havi. Right. He'll say that she's not a mamzer, but pogum yahavi. At least she'll fall into the category of being a pogum that she can still not marry a she cannot marry a kohen. Why would Rav Shimon HaTimoidi see this? B'Kav HaChaimer. You can see from B'Kav HaChaimer Almana. What's the din by a widow? Uma Almana Kohen Gadol. We know again a widow is allowed to marry a kohen, but cannot marry a Kohen Gadol. So if she does marry a Kohen Gadol, she ain't Isur Shava B'Koil. We know this is not an Isser which is Shava B'Koil, because it's only with him is there an Isser, but any other Kohen she could marry. Nonetheless, B'na Pogum, if they have a child together, the child is a Pogum, and therefore that child is like a Chalala, cannot marry a Kohen. So Zu, this case of Machzor Shaso, she is Surah Shava B'Koil. No one is allowed to do this. No one's allowed to get remarried in that situation. In Udin Shibana Pogum. So it's a davar pasha that the child will be a pogum. So you can learn out from Almano Kohen Gadol. Where says 1 second. Ikol Mifrach. Can you learn this from an almana to a Kohen Gadol? Malmana shechen hi atzma mischalelas. That when it comes to this case, the almana herself, not only will her child be a chalala, but herself too. She also takes upon herself as being mischalelas. Mashen Kain, when it comes to Machzor Shaso, fine, maybe it's something that'll happen to the child, but lav davka, because nothing happens to the mother either. But od, and furthermore, he toeva ksiv. It says that it's a toeva. Vein boneha toavin, which is mashma only by an almana kohen gadol. By that relationship, she is a toeva, which is mashma only her and not her children. So again, in that situation. Let's see Rashi. Fine. V'od he toeviksiv in bonet tuav. V'od Tanya Hamachzor Shaso. It says beferish in our Mishnah that noisech chalutzaso noisech korabas chalutzaso. Rabbi Kiva Omer ein lo ba kedushin. It's not a kedushin. If you marry Machzor Shaso, v'nasricha minu get, and therefore obviously don't need a get. V'hi psula, she's puzzle. Uvlad apostle, her child will become apostle. And we force the relationship to end. Machzor Shaso is a kedushin because he holds kedushin is toifus b'chavi lavan. Therefore you'll need a get. He kshera uvlad kshera, uvlad kosher. So laman lava kahuna. When it says she's kosher, it means that she's allowed to even go into the kahuna, which means she's not a pogum by Machzor Shaso. Lo kahal, that she is only allowed to marry into Yisrael, klal, into the kahal. However, in fact, we're going to say Machzor Shaso, the child is a pogum, and therefore is not able to marry is not allowed to marry a kohen. If so, he kashera laman. When it says that she's kosher, what's it referring to? Ilam kahal pshita mishum dezan yifsul kahal. Because she was mazana, that's it. She can't marry anyone anymore. Elolav kahuna. When she was mazana, she can't be in with a kohen. So obviously we're connecting the two. The mother, the psul is that she can no longer be with a kohen, and so too the child. So you can't tell me, that means no, the child is just not allowed to go to is not allowed to go to kahuna, and is just allowed to go to the kahal. So immediate area, hakadisa. No, you can't compare the two. By the mother, you're right. We're going to say that the mother is mutter b'kahal, but also going to be mutter is also by Machzor Shaso is also going to be mutter the kohen. Mashein kain. Mashein kain over by the alman kohen gadol. Fine. So hachinam mistabed. Tiny Reisha he psula vlad psula. He psula man. Elim kahal. We're going to say that she's possible To who? To everyone. Mishum Dazanya Yisrael Kahal, because she was Mazana, all of a sudden she is puzzle to the Kahal. So that can't be. Elav Kahuna just means that she's puzzled to go into Kahuna. Vlada Puzzle Man, Elam Kahuna Halakal Kosher, which means she's allowed to marry into the Kahal. Haim Rabbi Kiva, Havlad Mamzer. She said the child's a Mamzer. So if it's a child's a Mamzer, so that means you would not be able to go into the Kahal Hashem. Elapshita Kahal. Umaderesha Ha Kedis Elapshita Kahal. Umaderesha Ha Kedis Ha Kedisa. They're talking about two different cases. Sevenami Ha Kedis Ha Kedisa. Okay. He Tueva Nami, he Tueva and Sarasa Tueva. It's a Tueva for her, but not her co-wife. Baneha Tuavim. But maybe it means the children is a Tueva. Elamana Kasha. So we still have the question regarding an Almana. Malmana Shecheni Atzim Mischalelas. Right? You can't compare her to an Almana Kohen Gadol because the Almana herself doesn't become a Chol. Right? Her child does, but not her. So how can you compare it to Maxir Rishaso where how can you compare it to Maxir Rishaso? El Iyad Mar Hachiyamar. Rav Yosef Rav Shimon Rabbi Hakol Moedim Bebal Chavi Krisos Shavad Pogum. In the situation, everyone agrees, and there's Rabbi Kiva, everyone will agree that Chavi Krisos, the child's a Pogum. So Man Hakol Moedim Rabbi Yeshua. Definitely Rabbi Yeshua in Mamzer B'Chavi Krisos. Rabbi Yeshua actually has the most lenient opinion that we're just introduced to, that he normally says that even by Chavi Krisos, the child's not a Mamzer. The Mamzer Lahavi. Pogum Miyahavi. But the child's still a Pogum. Even though, again, it's only a widow cannot marry Kohen Gadol, but not Pogum, her children will be Pogum. So Zu, when it comes to the situation of Chavi Krisos, one who's Baal, Shava Krisos, she is Surah Shava Bakol, and an inch of a Pogum. So everyone would agree, even he, that when it comes to Chavi Krisos, that the din is the child will be Pogum. The Chite, maybe not a Mamzer, but it will be a Pogum, which means, again, can't marry a Kohen, but at least can marry into Kahal. So you can say, what do you mean? By the Almana, the Kohen Gadol, she's not so we see also when it comes to this situation that once she was boiled, she becomes a Zaina. And Rashi says, you couldn't answer that. That has to be that she was from before. So again, basically what we're saying is this three-way machlokas, what the din is regarding when a child is a mamzer, which would make them puzzle a kahal, or only pogum. Let's conclude here, but let's see a couple questions. TA 27. Madua Vlad Max Grishasu Kosher Lukahuna. Why would we say that a child from a product of Max Grishaso is kosher? We know that the child is a pogum over there by Almana Kohen Gadol. So why don't we learn out from the Almana Kohen Gadol that just like Almana Kohen Gadol, the child is going to be a pogum? So also by Max Grishaso, why would you say the child is kosher? Well, you should say the child is pogum. My answer is you can't compare the two. Because she herself does not become mischaleles. When it comes to Max Grishaso, she, even though, what do you mean? She was puzzle, but she was puzzle from before the child. It's not the child that made her puzzle, right? So when it comes to, again, when it comes to the Almana Kohen Gadol, what we're saying, he atzma mischalelas. It's the actual relation of the Almana Kohen Gadol, which is mechaler. But Max Grishaso, she was already Aser from the time of when she was a Gerusha to begin with. Once you're divorced, that's it. She's Pasal the Kahuna. So now you're Max Gerushaso. That doesn't change her status. And therefore, because of that, Lav Davka is not going to be a proof that we should say anything should happen to the child either. So maybe only by Almana Kohen Gadol the child is a pogrom, but Max Gerushaso, possibly everyone would agree that that in fact that's not the case. That maybe this child is not going to be a pogrom, and you can't learn out Kal V'chomer from it. TB 29. Maha Mokor. What is the Mokor? Shabal Chavi Krisos Havlad Pogrom L'Kahuna. How do we see that a person who has relations with Chavi Krisos, that the Vlad is Pogrom L'Kahuna, which is really almost the same thing, but is the bottom. So we said Yalfin and Kal V'chomer Malmana with Kohen Gadol Ad Kan.